I think leadership is something that the more you learn about it, the less you think you know about it, and you just keep hearing stories. One of them is it's not your job for your people to like you. You do not have to be liked to be a leader. Your job is not to be liked. Your job is to make them successful. What do you say to somebody that's kind of acting like a victim, even if they don't feel like they're being one, but they're doing victim things? I said, it goes back to the circle. Because look, if my son kept saying bruh all the time, and I wanted to coach him out of saying bruh, he has 5 of his friends over, they all come over, and as they're talking, I hear bruh, 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 bruh all over the place. What am I gonna say to him to help him when they're untraining him so hard? The problem is, it seems like there's a lot of old people in the industry. Now when I say old, I don't mean biologically, I mean the way of thinking. We're still doing things as if it's 2010 and it's 2024. And so they're looking for unicorns. They're looking for somebody that is organized, but that can sell. Somebody that's analytical, but also creative. Somebody that's great with people, but that doesn't mind getting in the weeds in CRM. They're looking for the unicorn.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast.
Hey friends, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Fitness CEO Podcast, a show for high performers where we teach you to lead so that way you can 10x your income, your impact, and your legacy. I'm Bryce Henson, your Fitness CEO and host, and here with my man Mike Arce, back for round 2. Welcome to the show, my friend.
I'm so excited to be here. We were in your hometown before. Now we're here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm excited to host you here this time.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This has been awesome. Had a great lunch and off to a great start. We're doing a little podcast swap. And we're on the road here with our show, so I appreciate your hospitality.
I love it. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So the first time we had you on the show, I'm going to say about 2021 timeframe, Mike. And it was branded under the Fitness Franchise Podcast. We've rebranded in early 2022 the Fitness CEO Podcast. So from a fitness CEO perspective, we're talking about leadership, we're talking about mindset, we're also talking about sales, marketing, all the things that you need to run a fitness business. And if you're new to the show, I want to kind of kick it off with your backstory. So from a business perspective, kind of what's your backstory? How did you get where you are today? I'm going to probably be prodding along with some leadership lessons that you can impart your wisdom on our audience.
Yeah, I was going to school for business, and I was also in martial arts, and I was good enough to where I was traveling for tournaments, and around 19, 20 years old, the boys started becoming men, and I was still very skinny and small, so I needed to figure out how to add some muscle to me. So I switched my major for a semester to a personal training certification program that they had there, and they got me really to understand like the world of fitness and personal training, so I loved it. Part of the curriculum was I had to actually take on a couple clients at the end of the semester. That was great. And I was a waiter while going to college at the time. So instead of being a waiter, I was like, well, when I go back to business, what if I just get a job at a gym and see if I could, now I have my certification, I'll be a trainer instead of a waiter. And so I did that, got a job at LA Fitness. They wouldn't bring me on as a trainer just yet because I had to be certified under one of their approved certifications. So I had to get a second certification, but they hired me as an assistant manager, which I didn't manage anyone. All it meant was your job is to sell training. So when new members join, your job is to sell them to work with one of our trainers.
And I would imagine you probably didn't have sales experience at this time.
I did, but
Okay.
it was not. It was no real training. I had 22 jobs before I was 24. Yeah,
Dude, my stat's 17. I think you have me beat. Well done, my friend.
I moved around a lot. Now, to be fair, a lot of those were me working at 6 or 7 different LA Fitnesses as they moved me to different clubs and different Pure Fitnesses as well.
Yep.
So there was some moving around within different businesses or the same business or brand. But yeah, I'd sold before, and I was always pretty good at sales. By that time, I had already done door-to-door sales. I'd done cold calling. But there was no real sales training in place. It was, I was enthusiastic and I was confident, and so that got me by. Then later on, once we got into Loudroom, it's the first time I really started doing training after I was the CEO of a company. But at that time, my job was to sell training, and I did pretty well. 3 months in, I broke the sales record, and I broke the sales record a few months in a row. And so rather than put me to a manager spot once I got that certification, which I did, they asked me if I'd like to be a manager of a location. They sent me to the worst location of 16 locations that they had, and it was the Peoria location on 67th Ave in Peoria, and it was failing. But brought it up to the top 4, and they sent me to another bottom 4, and then that became my job. I just kind of brought bottom 4s to top 4s, and I was like 20, 21 at the time. So from there, I started my own personal training company, and the kind of path onto fitness went from there. I found out I was going to be a dad while working at Pure Fitness, which I ended up selling my personal training company, went over to Pure Fitness to take on a bigger role at a company. I didn't like at the time all the things that came with business ownership. I like training and I like selling. Also, I was untrained, and you tend to not like what you're not good at.
Totally.
And I wasn't good at any of the things outside of sales, marketing, and trading. So I took a job as a leadership role over at Pure Fitness and loved it. I did definitely learn some leadership stuff there. They had some really good training stuff in place. Had a few more gym jobs after that as I moved around. And then I ended up starting a company called Loud Rumor, which I own today. Loud Rumor at the time was just a web design company. It was an idea that came in during a recession, right? Like, how do I get ourselves out of a recession?
This is about 2008, 2009 timeframe then.
2009.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we started a company where I would sell web design. I would have people in India or the Philippines design it for a price at 1/5 the cost of what I charge. But I also manage a project, make sure all the communication was relayed back and forth.
Let me interject here. Did you have the technical skill set to write code and build the website?
I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't even have a website.
This is just the entrepreneur vision that you had of like seeing a problem, trying to solve that problem, and figuring out the rest.
I was broke. I needed money. I was doing sales for this other startup that I had, which was like a Yelp, but terrible version of Yelp.
Okay.
I didn't know Yelp existed at the time. It was like during that time, a lot of that stuff wasn't around. Kudzu, Yelp, and City Search and all that. And so I started this idea, and as I was at this one restaurant selling them a spot on my site, Yelp, which was Fast Rumor at the time, right? They said, yeah, we don't need that, but we need a website if you know anybody. And I was so broke, and my wife was pregnant, that I was just like, yeah, we can make you a website. And he goes, really? Now, I didn't know how to make him a website, but the person that made me my website for Fast Rumor could make him a website, and I could just
Broker the deal.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And so
let me interject. It's like lesson number 1 in entrepreneurship. FIO. Figure it out, baby.
It's actually our first of our 4 core values is FIO and GSD.
You're
Figure it
kidding
out
me.
and get shit done. Yeah. That's number 1. That's our
awesome.
first one. Yep. So ended up selling a website. We split 50-50, me and the designer. And so I was like, okay, well, this seems a lot more lucrative than the idea everybody else is shooting down, because everyone keeps saying, oh, like Yelp, oh, like Yelp. And I heard about it later, right? So I started doing web design. And next thing you know, the person I was developing with, they said they couldn't do more than 4 or 5 a month. I was like, well, I'm going to sell more than 4 or 5 a month. I was like, what if we need 20? I want to sell 20. He's like, no, there's no way. So I went to go find another developer, and this guy said he could do 50, 100, whatever I get him. And I was like, how's that possible when I have one developer said he can't do 5? And he goes, well, worst case, I'll outsource. And then I go, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sounds great. Shook his hand, walked out. On my way to the car, I'm Googling outsource web design. And so cut him out. Immediately just went right to the source, found a manager, and Loud Rumor started as a web design company. And over time, I understood the value, like you do with the franchise you have, is recurring revenue, right? You guys understand the value of recurring revenue, which with web design, there's not that.
There's not, yeah.
Unless you're doing hosting, that's super small. We started doing SEO. That I did learn. I really got heavy into SEO, learned it. I was giving talks on it. And then I got into Google Ads once SEO at that time was doing a ton of updates that would screw your ratings and rankings. So they were named after weird animals like penguin and panda and a hummingbird, but every one of those updates just dropped whoever was in the first page down to like 5 or 10. So just all phone calls I was getting were from my clients saying, why am I not getting calls? So I learned Google Ads. And then we started getting people results there. Over time, we learned about social media as it was getting into the scene. We started doing Facebook ads for people, and we were doing well. But we were never getting, we had this sticky point. We couldn't get past 42 clients. We get a client, we lose a client. Get a client, we lose a client. And it was like a couple years of just like hovering in the same general area. So I started reading a lot, and I read this book called Built to Sell, and it talked about niching. I niched dentists first because I had 11 of those 42 were dentists, and the other ones I didn't have 2 of any other industry. So I figured that's the low-hanging fruit.
25% of your book of business was already dentists. Might as well start there.
Yeah, I've already got portfolio. I've got case studies. Problem was I'm so bored by the industry. My passion was always in fitness. I love fitness. Now, I didn't put 2 and 2 together yet. I just said niching isn't for me. I'm going to go back to broad. Then I met Billy, another person who was a mentor at first in that capacity, and then became a friend. And he said, what do you love to do? And I said, I love fitness. If I can go back to any world, it'd be fitness. He's like, well, you love business and marketing and you love fitness. Why don't you just do business and marketing for fitness?
Yeah, marry him.
So I was like, all right, we'll give it a shot. So first, on this time, I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing before we changed everything. So I had 3 buddies from being in the industry for so long, 3 buddies that own gyms. I asked them if I could do marketing for free for them for a couple months. And if I'm good at it, we'll keep going. If not, then at least I know, and it didn't cost them anything. We crushed it for them. We did so great for them. And I was always better at selling than them. So I was able to help them convert those leads much better and get more out of them. So we started creating videos for it and started doing marketing. And next thing you know, what took us 6 years to get 42 clients, in the next 18 months, we had 250, and now we're at over 3,100.
Holy smokes, Mike. When you look back at that, what was the catalyst? What was the difference maker that really kind of opened you up and allowed you to achieve that sort of success?
I felt like I was really good at it, and I liked it. Now, we talked about this earlier. People tend to not like what they're not good at, and they tend to like what they are good at.
Yeah, totally.
I love talking to gym owners and fitness students. I love talking to anybody that loves fitness. And that goes as, to the level of how to, gain muscle and lose fat, to all the way of gut health and intermittent fasting and stuff like the microbiome and how, anything, Peter Attia stuff, Huberman's. But then I also love talking to bodybuilders.
Totally.
So for me, anything in that realm, I lean into. Crowns and dental implants, you lose me 5 words in. Mm-hmm. So number one, I love talking to them. I also felt like I knew how to solve their problem. I think the gym space is easy. Let me rephrase that. It's simple. You're not building rocket ships. Mm-hmm. We're not creating a whole set of government, plans. We're helping people get in shape. And the cool thing is, everybody would be in better shape if they could. So really, we're selling something that everybody wants. I think a big reason a lot of people don't make sales is because they think they're selling what everybody wants, which is the workout and the class. But nobody buys the workout.
Correct.
People buy the outcome.
Correct.
Right? And so, but everybody, even Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, we saw the picture out there, we talked about Arnold. Even Arnold in his prime, if you asked him, would you take 1 more pound of muscle, 1% less body fat? He'd be like, hell yeah. Mm-hmm. So everyone would take better. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're selling. It's practically like selling drugs almost, right? Everybody wants to be in better condition.
Shape, of course.
So at this point, it's how do we talk to them the right way? So I love helping gym owners understand how to really get in the minds of the consumers and turning things around so that it's really not even a no-brainer. It's kind of like a where have you been my whole life?
Yeah. Amen. Well, I think, Mike, the biggest takeaway that I have right there is you got to follow your passion, and more than just woo-woo fairy stuff. Life is hard. Business is hard. You have to have a goal or target and be involved in something you're passionate about. Right. So that way it passes the first 2 minutes of someone talking about a dental implant, which you're not passionate at all. But when someone's talking about how to get better shape or how to live a better quality of life or be leaner, be healthier, that fires you up. In the same with me. So I think that is what I'm taking away from your foundational origin story. You got to follow your heart, and your passion is one takeaway.
And if you're naturally good at something, I think you double down on that thing. Mm-hmm. You were given that thing, whatever that is. What I wasn't given, I don't think I could be a surgeon. I throw up at blood.
Yeah, me too, man.
If my dog vomits, I'm out. I can't. I start throwing up myself, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain things I don't think God put in me to get me to be a surgeon, right, or deal with anything like that, or a nurse. But I feel like I love to get in the mind of other people. I love to see where people are coming from. I love to ask questions and listen and then be able to help change perspective, which I think is very important in sales, being able to help people see things through a different lens.
Oh, yeah.
So if that is what I naturally do, and when I look at everybody else, they tend to struggle in it, well, that means I've got some potential here. Mm-hmm. If I double down on the things that I was given as gifts, I'm going to go a lot farther. So for anybody listening, if you naturally have people tell you that you're really good at sales, or you're really good at leadership, or man, you make me feel so comfortable, or you're such a good coach, or whatever it is, how do you double down on that? Mm-hmm. because you're probably going to be world class at it if you put some time and energy into it.
Totally. And then you can just outsource your weaknesses. And then that way you're creating rocket fuel for your company.
100%. Yeah.
All right, Mike, I want to dive in a little bit more of like the leadership lessons, the potentially a leadership aha, and I'll kind of showcase mine here in a second. But before we do, one of the things that is very similar to our trajectories as founding companies, becoming CEOs, et cetera, is our background in sales. So what is your, I guess, correlation from your perspective of like your background in sales to now you being able to run and scale a very large company?
So I remember I was very confident in sales because of my track record. Your track record will give you confidence, right? And I was at this random like business networking event I was invited to at like a Marriott, and I'm at the bar ready to order like my seltzer. I always got the seltzer, and this guy leans over at the counter and he's just like, "So what's your business?" We started talking. Little by little, I find out that he's the former CFO of Cold Stone. He was there from when they had 40 stores to over 1,000.
Oh, wow.
But he goes, "My real passion is actually in sales," which is ironic considering I'm a CFO. I was like, "Really? Me too." He's like, "Let's go get lunch, talk sales sometime." So we went to go talk sales. I thought I knew sales. I didn't have names for everything, like anchors and objections and rebuttals. Like these are things that we know, but I didn't know of those terms yet. I knew what an objection was without the term. I knew when I saw it. I just didn't. I was so far from being trained. It was all just natural, like genetics combined with like enthusiasm and effort, right? And this,
which, in fairness, enthusiasm and effort in sales can take you a long way.
And conviction.
It's not the only thing, but it definitely helps, and it can mask a lot of, I guess, underperforming skill set.
Right, but imagine if you take an athlete and you show him plays.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh
wow,
I could run that whenever I want.
Yep.
Oh wow, so you run that play when someone does zone. Oh, I get it. Because a lot of times when you don't know that, you're just kind of running the plays that tended to work, and then in the different situation, that same play may not work the same way. But when you know the different plays, you're like, okay, this person, this is his main objection, this is concern, so I'm going to stay away from this. This is how I'm communicating with this person. I felt so small in that conversation at lunch. And I go, "Hey, can we do this again? I'd love to." It was 2 hours. He's like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it again. Let's do Saturday." Met up at 9 a.m. on Saturday. For the next 9 months in a row, I don't know why I was so likable to that guy, but we met every Saturday for 9 months in a row for 2 hours at 9 a.m. and we just talked about sales.
You're kidding me.
And I got really good. I got very confident. And I still had a lot more training after that, but man, I felt like I was able to really put tools in my tool belt. So I think that was really important because I was looking at sales in a way to where it wasn't about what worked for me, but it's about what works for the customer, which means you can scale that to other people on the team. And I think that's very important. When you have the owner being the only one that can make sales, that's not a scalable model. And so being able to create a system that scales past you, maybe you would sell 20% better under your system, but if you only have capacity for X number of sales appointments, technically it's better to have a 20% less closing ratio, but have 200, 300% higher sales force doing activity. That's the only job they have.
And I think, to interject here, that's the big hang up that I see a lot of gym owners or entrepreneurs in general come in. They're like, well, my teammate, my employee can't do it as good as me. And you're right at first, but it's your job as the leader to be able to train them. And to your point, if they can do it even at 80% of what you can do and set that standard, that'll allow you to scale, which is really what we're after here.
And here's the interesting part for anybody that says that, because I hear that too, right? Like if you talk to any gym owner that's kind of starting out or business owner, you're going to hear that. The problem is, let's say you're here in skill set. For everybody listening to the audio, imagine somebody's just a little bit above you and the other person, the salesperson's here. Well, clearly that little gap of how much better you are than that rep, that's going to create more sales. But what happens is, if you're taking more sales appointments, he's only taking the ones that you can't take. Who's getting in more reps? You are. Now, more reps is a mother of skill.
Totally.
So who's getting more skills?
You are.
Now, the gap between you and him is getting farther.
It's growing.
Which means your confidence between him and selling versus you is shrinking.
Correct.
Which means you're going to take even more opportunities, which means you get more reps in. And that gap continues to grow until the point where you think this guy's awful. Well, what if you settle for a little bit worse closing rate, but you get him the reps instead?
And you're still pouring into him. You're providing feedback.
Nothing changed with that.
Right.
But now what happens over time? He might start passing you.
You should.
He should with the reps.
Yeah.
And now from there, if an opportunity comes in, you might feel more confident giving it to him than you taking it yourself. So repetition is a mother of skill, consistency is a mother of habit. And so if we want skills to develop, we've got to give our people the reps, and we've got to put our people in situations where we know they might perform worse than us, but it's what it takes. Because at one point you were as bad as that person too. And the only reason you're above him now and you have the confidence in you now is because you did the reps that you're taking away from them. So if you give them those reps, you can get to that point with that person as well.
Dude, gold here, my friend, and spoken like a true leader, which is my next topic I want to drill into. So, Mike, I want to hear from your perspective, if you had something similar to me, a leadership awakening, I call it. And for me, we were talking about it at lunch. I knew for a long period of time that in order for me to have the financial freedom, the life freedom, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to launch and scale my own business. So that was the trajectory that we set in 2012 when I launched my first location within the Fit Body Bootcamp brand and scaled to a handful within the first handful of years before I joined HQ. But that in mind, if you can believe, it was about 2 years in my business journey when I had the sales, I had the marketing, I was the coach, I was training all the sessions, and things were working. But as my business began to grow, I realized my team wasn't necessarily as built or bought in the vision on the coaching and the client experience that I was. And there was like this delta, this disconnect. And I remember 2 things happened to me. Number one, I went to one of my dear friend, used to be in our brand and a really, really successful gym owner, and he hosted a workshop, like an on-site experience, and really showed me, wow, this is what leadership is, to be able to kind of cast a vision, get your team on the same, vision. Around the same time, I attended, we were just talking about Bedros offline, one of his workshops, and he'd been talking about leadership and his skills, and he actually gave us 6 pillars of leadership workshop, describing his leadership inadequacies and really how he overcame those. And like a lightning bolt, I was like, wow, yes, sales, marketing, entrepreneurship is important, but the missing skill set that I need to develop to really grow and scale my companies, I need to become a better leader. So that was a very humbling moment in time for me, but it really changed the trajectory of my kind of vision to develop leadership skills. So I'm curious from Mike, if you had something similar that, in your life and your experience that really made you understand the value of leadership.
So I always knew the value, always. Once I started studying leadership, I think my first book was Multipliers by Liz Wiseman, which is a really good book. I already knew that there was value in leadership, but just because you know the value of it doesn't mean you've got it, right? Like just the value of money, but you may not have it. So leadership is something you have to practice, and I think I'm about halfway home, maybe right now of where I want to be. And maybe I'll think worse as time goes on.
That tends to happen, actually.
Yeah. But I remember I got into Stoicism. Actually, it was a conversation. I was at dinner with the Hermosis, Alex and Layla. They were in town in Arizona, and they said they were doing some talk out here. I was like, oh, you want to grab dinner? So we grabbed dinner, and I was telling them about how I was studying Buddhism. I was really excited about it. Somebody had told me Buddhism had some really cool, storytelling in order to see the world in a different perspective. And I started diving in. I was like, wow, there's some really good stuff in this thing. So I was talking to Alex and Layla, and they agreed. They were like, oh, yeah, this is really good stuff. They go, have you ever looked into Stoicism? And I'm like, oh, what's Stoicism? And I didn't know it at the time.
Dude, man, it's like, this is my philosophy. I love this.
Yeah, and this was probably like 2020, 2021. I mean, it was right around that time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I went home and I looked up Stoicism, and I can't remember. I think the first book I got was Meditations, the Gregory Hayes edition. And I fell in love with Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, yeah.
I started studying him, and I was like, this is the leader. He was the greatest, to me, the greatest of the 5 great emperors of Rome. He's the 5th one before his son Commodus took over. But people followed him because of his vision for Rome and the idea of what Rome would be. And they didn't follow him because he was a tyrant. They followed him because they literally loved him and the way he led, and he was a philosopher, and he looked at things the same way. And what I always thought was interesting about Stoicism and Buddhism as well was, even though Stoicism took place 2,000 years ago, where there was no running water, there was no plumbing, no refrigerators, no expiration dates on foods, limited access to medical care and doctors and stuff like that. Like all the things that if we're stripped from us today, we would feel like we're in Armageddon, right? But they struggle with the things that he wrote about that they struggled back then are the same things we write about today. The struggles are constant. yeah, we may have plumbing, we may have food, we may have access to healthcare, we may have all these things today, but the thing that give us the most struggle is feeling lack of confidence or inadequacies, or not feeling like you're good enough, insignificant, curious, like all the same things. And it's probably going to be like that forever until the end of mankind,
It's
right?
human nature.
It's our
right?
thing.
Yeah.
But what Marcus Aurelius did that I stole was every person he learned from, whenever he learned something, he would make a note of it. And I have my notes in my phone, and I've got like 200 or so things that every time somebody says something, and I go, that was an interesting perspective, I'll put that note down. And I do the sauna practically every day. When I do the sauna, I reread that every day because I don't want to forget these lessons.
Yeah.
I say all that because Marcus Aurelius kept going back to things. I think as a leader, what I've learned is you're always having to learn something very important, meaning like it could be about marketing or sales or finance, because you have to keep shifting gears. One day finance isn't the problem. One time it's people or culture or whatever, and you have to like switch. And next thing you know, the lessons that got you to where you were, this wasn't a problem at one point, those lessons started to drift, and then it becomes a problem again. And so you're kind of through this cycle, and I hated being in the cycle. And so I reread through these things every single day. So for me, studying the greats, emperors, I don't know if you get much greater level of leadership than being an emperor of a thing like Rome, right?
Unbelievable.
Studying him, and then getting excited about studying all the other great leaders that are out there, from business leaders like Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk now, and the way he thinks. Benjamin Franklin, Henry Ford. These guys have done some really cool things. So I think leadership is something that the more you learn about it, the less you think you know about it, and you just keep hearing stories. So I personally love studying biographies for leadership more than leadership books now. Reading about great leaders and how they conducted their day or how they handled different situations, that to me I get a lot more out of than reading a book on, then you want to make sure you do this and do that and do that. Those are good, but
because also too, from a storytelling perspective, human nature, we're gravitating to that. But also too, there's a lot of messages that are necessarily taught. And when you're reading someone's biography, you're catching message or you're catching learning lessons, just observing and understanding and studying how they live their life, which can be extremely powerful.
I think humans are natural mirrors. And so when we see somebody do something well, we believe we can do it too. And now we just think about how we can do it.
That's like the 4-minute mile, Roger Bannister, right? Back in the 1950s, no one thought that you could break a 4-minute mile. And I think I read there's some physicians that said it's physically impossible.
Yep.
And until one day, Roger Bannister in England broke the 4-minute mile. And I think within like 12 months of that, 45 other people did. Because to your point, they saw that mirror, they saw what's possible. It's like, hey, I can replicate that.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I mean, now I think that's why communities are so important as well. With our program, we didn't just want it to be like we provide a service. We wanted people to feel like they're part of a community, because like even today we had one of our calls. We do calls every three times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we had one guy that goes, yeah, I'm getting 100 leads a month. Or I'm sorry, not 100 leads, 100 sales per month, 100 members per month just through my organic Instagram strategy. And I was like, whoa, now everyone leaned in.
Sure.
Now, what does everybody now believe is possible?
They believe that being able to generate 100 membership sales on a monthly basis,
even if they get 20,
can happen with Instagram.
Just with that one avenue, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a big part of why being in a community of people that are either they have standards or goals as high or bigger than yours is very, very important.
Oh, amen. All right, Mike, I want to transition a little bit about fitness and kind of what we do and industry trends and all that. But one last thing in terms of leadership before we transition. In studying the great leaders, I mean, you talked a little about Stoic philosophy. We're kindred spirits. I mean, this is my philosophy. I love Marcus Aurelius, been a huge mentor from afar, granted 2,000 years ago, but still it shows up in both of our lives today, which is incredible.
He'd be one of my dinner party guests. You know that question?
Love that.
Like, who would you have there? He's one of my guys.
Elon Musk is my first one, but I can say Marcus Aurelius could be number 2.
Yep.
What are some other, I guess, leadership strategies, especially for someone who's, knows that, hey, they're meant for something more, they're tapping in this podcast because they want to launch a business, they want to be an entrepreneur, but they also know they need to level up from a leadership perspective. Maybe one or two, learning lessons that you experience, hard learning lessons as a leader, or if that doesn't ring a bell, maybe just some strategies that you follow that's really guide and help shape your leadership.
One of them is it's not your job for your people to like you. You do not have to be liked to be a leader. Your job is not to be liked. Your job is to make them successful.
It's like a parent.
Yes, just like that. I talked to my wife about this. How I know that I've done a good job as a dad is how well my son can handle the world when I'm gone. That's it. How successful he can be when I'm gone. So helping him get on the stool as opposed to just going, you can do it, get on there, right? And not helping him, let him even fall a couple times. Maybe get mad at me for not helping him.
Yeah.
Whatever. But if I help him up, it's different. So same thing with your people. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, me included in the past, I cared about my people liking me. I thought that was a very important thing. You need to like me. Right now, I'm sure my people like me, some more than others. I'm sure some people don't like me and pretend to like me.
Totally.
And that's okay. That's not a KPI for me.
It shouldn't be, by the way.
No, it's not. My KPI is, are they successful? Meaning, are they the right people in the right seats doing the right things right? And as long as we put the right people in the right seats doing the right things right, and the culture is good and the mission's right, they're successful. If they leave this company 5 years later, smarter, able to get a better job, or move up in my company, or just happy with where they're at, they got some of their stuff done, great. They grew, that feels great. More importantly, what the company was designed to do, did that happen because everybody was on the team? And that is an important lesson for me. The other one is lens. Being able to take your lens off and put the lens on of whoever you're talking to. Not everybody's like you. So I learned this interesting lesson with my wife. My wife was always pretty motivated. When we started the company, she made 230 cold calls a day for 5 weeks straight at 5 months pregnant.
What a beast.
Yeah, weekends included. Read books with me, all that stuff, right? And then about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, maybe not even that long ago actually, she just started getting lazy. Now I'm doing quotes because it wasn't lazy, but it could appear that way to somebody that has high standards, right? She wasn't reading anymore. She wasn't as consistent with working out. She wasn't really she was watching TV a lot more than she usually did. And I remember pushing her because I'm like, hey, this isn't you, what's going on? And she didn't take that really well. And so I was like, maybe it's something deeper than that because it's weird. I know who you've been. Let's go to the doctor. We went to naturopath. Naturopath did blood work. And that naturopath said, I don't even know how you get out of bed in the morning. Her levels were so low in so many things, cortisol and testosterone and all this stuff. And according to her, she had why am I forgetting the name? But whatever it is, it's an autoimmune disease, and it was causing a whole bunch of stuff, skin issues, everything. It was really affecting her, really bad. This thing called Hashimoto's. So anyway, he's like, with these levels, most people couldn't get out of bed after 8 a.m. Now, here's the interesting thing. She was waking up at 6 a.m. every day, getting our kids ready for school, feeding them breakfast, make sure they had all their stuff, takes them to school, still went to the gym on some of the days, worked out, came home, helped get some of the house done, picked them up from school, took them to all their activities, 4 of them, 4 kids, helped them with homework, cooked dinner, got them ready for bed. She did all that, and she's not supposed to be out of bed past 10 according to the average person.
Wow.
I was calling her, in my mind, lazier with quotes, but in reality, because I didn't have any of those issues, she was technically outworking me.
Yes. Yeah. When it comes to resistance in terms of what she was pushing through.
Right.
Yeah.
So what that got me to realize is sometimes we'll judge oh, he doesn't even really want it. He's not reading. He's not waking up this early. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. It's you can see the outside. You can't see the inside. Meaning, if you saw me dunk a basketball, I'm 5'7", you'd be everyone in the room would be damn, boy can jump.
Yeah, clearly.
If you saw LeBron James dunk, you'd be well, yeah, obviously.
He should dunk.
Yeah, if he didn't dunk.
He's like a man-child.
Right. But you would say that because you could see the outside. We're we could see that dimension. We can't see the inside. But what if you could see the inside and you see somebody that's waking up at 4 and he's, you know, reading and he's doing all that stuff, but then you look at the genetics and you go, well, damn, this guy's genetically more driven, he's got more energy, his levels are perfect, his metabolism's great. And then you look at this person, his levels are all low. So technically, even though this person's doing more things, this one's working harder to do the things that this one's doing. So when you say I'm outworking you, you're not outworking me. You're outdoing me with less work because it takes less effort for you. So, but that, I took that same conceptual thinking and go like, well, that applies to anything. I can't see the inside. I can't see your intelligence in this category versus that category, your ability to pick something up, what might be going on in your day or at home or any of those things. So I think one of the things that I worked hard as a leader is to be able to look at people and assume that they got some other shit going on and not assume that whatever's perfect in my life right now is going on for them. And also whatever's fucked up in my, sorry, I don't know if I could curse on your podcast.
You're good to go.
Okay.
Buddy.
Whatever's messed up in my life, I don't want to assume that they got to understand my perspective.
Yeah,
they don't have to understand that I've got, because I'm a human being too, so I've got all my stuff going. Like, I don't have a perfect life. My son gets bullied not anymore, but he was getting bullied at a time when I was working this company. That was one of the most heartbreaking things as a dad.
Yeah.
My wife and I had challenges in the past, but I never brought that to work. And I can't expect my employees to have any type of sympathy because they don't know, and I don't know either. So I think just understanding the lenses that exist and being able to take yours off every once in a while.
Yeah, and that's such great leadership or advice. And I think there's a famous saying, everyone's fighting an invisible battle, so just be kind and be considerate. And that certainly applies to you being a great leader for your company. So
Yeah.
Big takeaway there. All right, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about our industry trends and all that, but we were talking a bit about Loud Rumor, and you talked about how getting the company off the ground and, you know, all the obstacles that you had to overcome. When you look back, you know, over 10 years ago, what were some big challenges that you had to overcome, one or two? And then fast forward today, you know, what's one of the big challenges the organization you're going through? And the reason I ask this is because every single company, every single organization has problems. It's about having the figure it out mindset. So I'm curious if you can kind of give some insight to some challenges that you went through with Loud Rumor, and how'd you overcome that? I'm sure there's some gold that our audience will take away.
My circle of people I had to be around. I had to change that circle. I realized that the majority of people that I was hanging out with had goals smaller than mine or standards smaller than mine.
And is this in the early days of starting the company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hanging out with people that were still going out and
Going to
partying
bars,
and
yep.
drinking and, you know, like playing poker 4 nights a week or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And not to say that any of those things are bad, but that doesn't help me get to where I'm going. So that didn't align. Like I couldn't keep those habits going. And, you know, if you hang out with people that say dude all the time, you're going to start saying dude all the time. So I couldn't hang around people that were not doing the activities that aligned with me getting to my goal.
Yeah.
So constantly finding, like I told you, I was like, how do I get around Roland more? Remember, I was like, how do I be around him more, or Ryan? Or when I find somebody that I think is like really motivated and really smart and really connected, I want to find a way to be around that person more and help that person more because it helped me. I think that's number one, because everything else is easier after that.
In what way did it help you? And I want to be able to provide like a
Everything
tangible
is
action
easier.
step.
Everything's easier.
In what way?
So watching the stories they tell versus the stories my old buddies told. My old buddies talked about the past.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about sports. That was it. That was like 90% of the conversation. Maybe about how annoying their wife was, right? That was like 90%.
Yeah.
The people that I talk to now, the conversations, majority are around problems they're solving. So I'll hear Dave Berg, a great mentor of mine, 12 years. We had a cigar and he was like, you know, I've got this one guy on my team that I think's got a ton of potential. I don't think he sees it yet. So I'm working through this thing. And he's just talking through his ideas and just listening to how he thinks through it. Number one, just watching him think through it makes me, you know, go like, I should probably look at where I could do that as well, right?
You're catching these lessons, even though he's not formally teaching you.
Right.
You're paying attention through that environmental exposure, and you're catching these lessons and then applying them.
Right.
Yeah.
Or hanging out with Roland, right? And I remember Roland would be like, well, why don't you just start a company that does it? And I would be like, yeah. Why don't I just do it? He's like, yeah, be simple. Find a partner that already knows how to do it. It's got maybe a few clients already. And you don't have to set it up. Partner with them. And you know, if you need help with structuring a deal, I can help. But I mean, overall, it's a lot simpler than starting it yourself. And I'm just like, gosh, it's a whole new way of thinking.
Sure.
Right? when it comes to sales. I remember I was having a conversation with, what the heck, Cardone.
Grant Cardone?
Yeah. Cardone's been on my podcast like 3 times.
Oh,
I've been out to his. He's a unique.
He's a character.
Fun animal.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember I was talking to him, and he said, look, man, you got to keep your attention on the customer. If your attention gets off the customer, starts being about everything but the customer, you're going to lose the customer. Everything's got to be about the customer. What does that customer want? What does that customer care about? And he started talking to me about like the customer. And I was like, dang, that's right. We're thinking about the techniques. We're thinking about all this stuff. And not that any of those things are bad to learn, but they should all have a root of the customer at the end of the day. So I think when somebody says, man, you got to get better at sales. Well, it's easier to get better at sales when you're hanging around people that are excited and talking around sales, right? If I started hanging out with you and your buddies, as an example, and I know you're not this way, but let's say all of you guys watched football, right? And I'd start hanging around with you guys. I guarantee you I'd start picking up things about football.
Totally.
I'd start picking up who's a better quarterback and why and who's out of their prime. And I just naturally pick that up and I'd probably start liking it. So the same thing goes with anything else. I think if I was on a call with this guy, Roger, yesterday, and he was like, how do you coach somebody out of being a victim?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm going to rant. I feel like today, like the last few years, victim mentality is just all around us. So I can rant on this for a while, but you just struck a chord with me.
What you just said, though, is the core of it's all around us. So you said, what do you say to somebody that's kind of acting like a victim, even if they don't feel like they're being one, but they're doing victim things? I said, it goes back to the circle. Because look, if my son, super simple example, just to illustrate it, if he kept saying bruh all the time, bruh, every other word, bruh, and I wanted to coach him out of saying bruh, but then he has 5 of his friends over, they all come over, and as they're talking, I hear bruh all over the place. What am I going to say to him to help him when they're untraining him so hard?
Yeah, the environment. It's like you going out into the wave and you trying to like create that wave is going to take you. That environment's going to take you.
Yeah. So I can say little things like put a rubber band on you. If you hear yourself say bruh, snap that rubber band. I can say ask people to hold you accountable. I can say practice using a different term. I could do all that stuff. But you know what would be the easiest thing? Is hang out with people who don't say bruh. That's it. Simple as that. You want to stop saying bro? If you stop hanging out with them, I can coach you to get even faster. But like at the end of the day, that is going to slow us down, if not make it impossible. So hang out with people that don't say bro. You want to be more successful as a business owner, hang out with people that are successful business owners. How do I do that, Mike? How do I even start that? Ask them questions. They're successful because they've been helped. No one's self-made.
No.
So naturally, everyone loves giving back. I do it. When one of my members calls, I'll spend sometimes 20, 30 minutes on a call with them. And I'm enjoying it. I don't feel like they're being a pain in the butt. Why am I enjoying it? Because I'm on this side of the table now. I know what it's like to be on the other side of the table. And I'm not even consciously thinking about it. It's just unconscious. Like I enjoy this. And my mentors, all the relationships have started with, hey, I'd love to ask you a couple of questions. You're so good at this one thing. And they would say, yeah, what is it? And I would ask a question, but true question, right? And then from there, just ask. And never, ever, when you're getting mentored, say I've done that before, or yeah, we did that and it didn't work, or yeah, I already know that. Even if all those are true, you never say, because what I've learned is from a mentor, because I did it. I say, yeah, we did that, it didn't work. And he goes, can I coach you on something as a mentee? I go, yeah. Every time you tell a mentor that you already know that, or that you've done it before, or that you've done it and it doesn't work, they stop giving you ideas because they feel like they're not providing value and they don't want to keep being valueless.
Correct.
Just say, interesting, and ask how they did it, because maybe you'll learn something from it, or maybe they'll ducktail somewhere else.
Because a lot of times I find, Mike, in that particular situation, yeah, it might have been done, but there's a wide variety and variance of execution around that. 100%. So instead of just saying, hey, think I've already done that, it's like, okay, how specifically did you execute that? Because my gut is telling, if a mentor you're there, exchanging ideas with you, probably knows the way and probably executed it a lot differently than you did.
Right. So, I mean, think about you're selling a gym membership. Guy goes, hey, I've worked out before, it didn't work. What would you say? How'd you do it?
Yeah.
What were you doing? Because working out works.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, I think the number one thing is you surround yourself around the right people, and you've got to spend more time with people that have goals and standards higher than you or as high than people that are lower. Because these people will untrain you more than they'll train you. So you've got to like go the
That
opposite
just takes
route.
intentionality.
Yeah. Like I on purpose will set up like discounts, right? Like
Yeah.
I think you're a guy that has high standards,
Thank you.
that's got high goals, that wants to do big things. So even just this time, like you checked the box for me this week where I've got to have a conversation like that with somebody this week. I did that yesterday with the guy Roger, and I'll do it every week.
Likewise, my friend. And I feel like a rising tide raises all shift. Just being in your presence, your energy, we feed off each other,
Yeah.
and we become better for it.
Yeah.
And therefore, our teams do, our clients do, our organizations do.
And neither one of us learned one more thing about football.
Amen.
Not that it's bad.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad, but the point is, if it doesn't align with the goals for me, that doesn't help me right now. So I'm not going to gain a new interest in something that doesn't help me.
Well, kindred spirits, and our audience, if you're watching this, you hopefully are in that same mind frame as well.
Yeah.
So.
To be fair for everybody, I love basketball and I love NBA. And so I can't talk about the NBA quite a bit. I'm saying to gain a new interest, there's no reason to, yeah.
All right, let's transition to the topic of the hour, which is like our space, the fitness industry. And we both got into it. We both serve, gym owners and help them support, be more profitable, drive more revenue, drive more impact, which is the name of the game. So from a fitness industry perspective, we're already in 2024. This will shoot off in Q2 of this year. What are some of the things that you see from an industry trend?
Well, I think trends, I wouldn't call it a trend yet because it's not happening enough. It's like the first guy that wore Crocs. It's not a trend until
there's
there's
trend
enough
behind it.
cool
Yeah.
people wearing Crocs.
Yep.
I looked at the manager position. I think the most important thing for a gym owner to get right is the manager role. We've got a lot of gyms that we work with, and we survey a lot of them, and we survey them all. And what we learned was 100% of our gyms that are achieving all three of our points of purpose, which is more members, more money, more minutes. Everything we build, decide on doing, anything has to help them get all three. More members, more money, and more minutes.
When we say minutes, we mean
Time. Like, great, you got more members, but you're working 90 hours a week now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want that. I'd rather you work less in the business and more on the business or on the portfolio of business than in the business. Meaning I don't want you taking calls as the owner. Yeah, that might be important right now and where you're at, but ultimately you're not going to get that second, third, fifth location if we're taking calls in the first one because you can't scale that to 5, right? So that's what we mean by that. We surveyed all of the gyms. What we learned was that 100% of the gyms that had an A-rated manager, they were growing in all three of these areas. More members, more money, and more minutes. What we also saw was everybody that was not growing in more members, more money, and more minutes, admittedly did not have an A manager. So that manager is an important role. So we're like, okay, well, we need to get a manager. The problem is, it seems like there's a lot of old people in the industry. Now, when I say old, I don't mean biologically, I mean in the way of thinking. We're still doing things as if it's 2010 and it's 2024. And so they're looking for unicorns. They're looking for somebody that is organized, but that can sell. Somebody that's analytical, but also creative. Somebody that's great with people, but that doesn't mind getting in the weeds in the CRM. They're looking for the unicorn.
Yeah, that is unicorn, my friend.
That's hard to find.
Totally. Because those are, what you just laid out in my experience, they're opposite, opposing and contrary type of skill sets. They're all very much needed, but to package someone in that, I don't have all those skill sets. I have one or the other, but not both.
And then they want to pay 40K, 45K base with commissions.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with 40, 45K, but your opportunities are limited to find unicorns when you can't pay much more than that. So what is it that needs to be done in order to solve this? So I think the org chart is a little bit flawed, personally. I think the org chart and the way that the industry has been doing it for a while is you got the owner, you got a manager, depending on the modality, you might have a head trainer as well. And then you got trainers, and you got your front desk or sales, and that's your team. But this manager sits at the top, and you want them to be able to run this company for you. You don't want to run the company, you want to own the company that runs.
Correct.
Right. And so that means this person's got to run it. But this person has to have all those things, or do they? technically, instead of saying, who do I need on the team? What's better to do is say, what are all the functions that I need done? And then once you say, these are all the different functions, now we say, which one of these functions belong to the same person? Because there's creative, outgoing, customer facing. Okay, these things can fall into the same human. That's an easy TTI or DISC assessment for anybody that knows the personality assessment.
Amen.
Analytical, behind a CRM, organized, right? This is another person.
It's conscientious, the C.
Right. So we're looking at this, we say, okay, so these are the things that have to be done. Now, of those things, what can be offshored? What can be outsourced? We're in 2024 now. So I tested this, and we have some people that are doing it. One of them spoke today in our power call. His name's Nick Page. He's awesome. 26-year-old kid.
Works for Loud Rumor or another gym?
No, he owns a gym.
Okay.
He was doing like 15K 2 years ago. He's doing 56K right now.
Nice.
He's 26 years old.
Whew.
So he's 24 when he started. And he's such an action taker. We care about our members, our clients, having our core values too. And he's FIO GSD. So he called me up and he's like, Mike, I'm having a hard time finding the manager. And I said, well, talk to me through the process. And I realized that he was doing the same thing. He was looking for that unicorn like an old person. And I said, listen, it's 2024. I mean, outsourcing and offshoring is better than it's ever been. The tools in which to do it is great. Why don't we just list out all the things that need to be done that can be outsourced and offshored and get that done? Pulling reports, plugging in data, following up with people that haven't been in the studio in a while, declines, whatever, like everything that managers have to do. And how do we get the manager to just focus on revenue generating activities? That's your job. Your job is, your one KPI is revenue. That's it.
That's it.
Everything else, well, what about attrition? Yeah, because it leads to revenue. What about new sales? Again, leads to revenue, right? Like class usage, yeah, it leads to attrition, which leads to more revenue, right? So we go, how do we focus the manager on just revenue generating activities and get them out of the damn CRM, get them out of the reports? They can use the reports to make decisions, but I don't want them plugging stuff in to make the reports. So he got this VA, I think it was like $1,100 a month, or no, $7 an hour, doesn't even use her full time. He goes, dude, game changer. Game changer. She's doing all this admin stuff for me, and I'm able to just focus, get my manager just focusing on the revenue generating stuff. And he hired 2 salespeople underneath that manager now, and they're just on fire. I'm actually doing a call. He's leading one of our power calls in our community in a month on how he uses his VA, all the things that he has her do. I'm pretty interested in that. But I think that's one trend that we're going to start seeing. We're going to start seeing roles broken up. Totally. Because it's very competitive now. It's not as easy as it used to be, because any shopping center, there's a Starbucks and there's a fitness studio. That's it. And it wasn't like that 6 years ago.
Correct, yeah.
So we need to be able to learn how to leverage stuff like that, stuff like AI and automation. AI is big. I mean, I created a video November of 2022 on AI and how this is going to make an impact. And all last year we spent working on AI, and this GSDCon, our event in February, we're actually launching, I can't even tell you much more than that, but it's cool. And actually, if we do another episode,
yeah, we will.
I'll be able to really launch this thing out. Well, this doesn't come out.
By the time this shoots out, the actual event will already been produced.
All right. So let me ask you a question then. I need a promise from you.
Yep.
This doesn't leave pre-editing. Like, you can't share this with anybody.
Pinky swear. There you go.
All right. So we got an AI guy coming out. You guys too over here. We got an AI.
All our camera people, the media people. We need your confidentiality.
So his name is Hugh. His last name is Manoid, and he is actually an AI representative at Loud Rumor. You can ask him anything you want. He's got 800 hours of our content all programmed in his brain. You want to ask him questions, you want to role play with them, you want to find out certain resource we have, want to know when the next event is, who the next speaker is, how do I get to the conference room from my hotel room? You want to know, where can I find the best reports for this? How do I overcome this objection? What are the trending rates? Because we have all of our data plugged in from all of our companies. What's the attrition rate this month across the board? What's the cost per lead this month across the board? What's the cost per lead this month for cycle only, or for spin, or for boot camp, or whatever? So all of that, and Humanoid is talking to you in my voice.
And this is AI.
And you could talk to him right on your phone and go back and forth. You could type, or you can talk back and forth.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And just think of this, in 2024, you're launching this. I'm actually, here with you today. I'm connecting with our technology partner to have a Friday meeting about AI, which is really exciting. Can you even imagine in 2025 and 2026, when we timestamp this a few years down the road? Holy smokes.
We can't comprehend what's about to happen.
No, yeah.
And the reason we can't comprehend, well, we can't create the idea, but we'll comprehend it once it happens. So the way, think of like 1950, or look at the Jetsons. You ever watch like any of the Jetsons?
Oh yeah.
They were right about some things, like FaceTime, right? They were FaceTime.
Yeah.
But they were so wrong about other things, like the robots walking around and doing food in a pill format. But what they didn't anticipate was being able to do currency in the way that we do, right? Like they were still doing cash.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah,
in the Jetsons, they were still doing cash. And if you looked at like how they were getting ready, like just walking through and stuff got ready for them. But what they didn't have is like wearables to tell you your heart rate and your sleep and all that. So the brain could only imagine like certain things, but then down the road, like other things happen. But there's this cool idea, and I can't remember who it was. We were talking about like the pyramids and how the pyramids were built. This is a crazy thing. Some people think it's aliens, but other people think it was from a civilization that was a lot smarter than us that got wiped out. But the reason it didn't seem smarter than us is because they didn't have what we have today. But that doesn't mean that that's not smarter than us, right? So you can get smart in this way. Once a screen is developed, now all of a sudden you go, well, what else can be done with the screen? But if that screen's not developed, maybe this never comes out. Maybe the phone never comes out. Maybe the TV never comes out. Like all these things that follow. So you start doing other things. Maybe it has to do with like levitation or what do you call it? Transport. What do you call it?
Transcendental meditation?
No. When you're here and then now you're in another country.
Transport.
I guess it's just transport, right? So like all these things could have happened. We want one way versus another. And so I don't know where I was going with that because I get really into this shit.
Well, I'm excited too. We were just talking about AI in the future.
That AI in the
where
future,
we're going,
yeah.
in the next few years.
So I think what's going to happen in the next 10 years, it's probably going to be very, very different than what we're imagining. We're probably just imagining a better version of what we have. But in reality, it's going to be so different, I think, than what we have. And I talked to, Peter Diamandis?
Oh, well, I know of him, yes.
So he was talking a lot about AI and where it's going, and he's very, very
He's been
deep
talking
into it.
about this for, a decade. I feel like he's been really forecasting what's
Yeah.
like that.
And he's anticipating that in 6 years from now, possibly sooner, it's going to be considered malpractice for a doctor or a surgeon to give a diagnosis without first checking with AI. Surgery, our children, maybe my grandchildren, right? Because I've already got one that's 17, but definitely my youngest one, they're going to think we're crazy.
Yeah.
You let a human operate on you? That's insane. Like, what if he was sleepy? Human error. Like, you let him cut you open and do surgery. Like, why wouldn't a robot do it? And we'd have the best healthcare in the world because every robot can be programmed to be the best surgeon. See, right now, if you're Jennifer Lopez and I'm just nobody, and we both have the same condition, you can afford the best guy today. I cannot. I've got to get the second best guy or the third best guy or not today. But what if the best guy was better than the best actual human? And because it's commoditized like our phones, every hospital can have the best guy. And they are 24/7. A surgeon could only do a certain amount of surgeries per day legally. 24/7, always sterile, unlimited hands, unlimited arms.
Unbelievable.
Steady, infrared. It's incredible. So the world is going to be different than we've ever experienced it. And I think with fitness, is going to be one of the things that changes more than anything over the next 5 years. I think that has to do with every franchise we see out there. One franchise is going to kind of start something and it's going to go. But think about, you have wearables right now. You have a wearable.
Yep.
That tells your sleep.
Yep.
It tells your steps.
Yep.
Tells your heart rate. There's stuff that tells your ketones. It tells your mood. It tells like your sugar levels. There's all these different things that you can have. But everything's fragmented, just like the phone was. The phone, this was a calendar, a notebook, a mailbox. It was 1,000 things, and now it's all right here.
Yep.
But fitness is really a numbers game. And if we go, look, Bryce, for you shouldn't work out more than 3 days a week, and you should stay away from tomatoes specifically for you because this affects your gut in a different way than most others. And you thrive off of this. And I think fitness in 5 years from now, it's going to be able to be so customized in the most commoditized way that the person that gets the brand that gets there first, that's able to really use science, not the way Orange Theory says they use science. I mean, really use science in order to help people get in shape faster, easier, and cheaper than ever before. That one's going to be the next leading wave of franchise. And just like, I think some brands like Orange Theory with the heart rate monitors, they kind of set the tone. I think this next one, even bigger, is going to set the tone for using wearables and giving everything that's fragmented now coming in one place where I can help you scientifically. I can tell you right now, stand on this thing, we're done.
Dude, man, I love talking to a true visionary because I see that. And it's interesting, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, that's so exciting, but also terrifying as well. I mean, just think back in the day, when the Ford Model T came out, when everyone was just driving horses, and they're like, how crazy is that guy driving a Model T car? And then now, obviously, fast forward, we have Teslas and, technology advances, human civilization advances.
We're just afraid of stuff we don't know.
Right, that's it.
Like ChatGPT, you just saw that people were protesting to not let students use ChatGPT.
No.
So there were parents writing letters to Congress and stuff saying we need to get this out of here, kids are cheating. Do you know that when the calculator first came out, Google this, there were protesters for the calculator standing outside saying no calculators in schools, saying it's cheating. Can you imagine students not using a calculator now?
Yeah.
It helps them do it faster. Why would you slow their growth, their learning curve?
And that's really just what it is. It's AI is going to be the ability for us to get us better, just like tapping into this computer, tapping into the internet. So you have two choices. You can either freak out about it or you can embrace what's about to happen. And the ones who do will be successful.
AI and just overall technology is going to be incredible for our industry. As long as your mission is to really help people get in the best shape of their lives and be more motivated and believe in themselves more than they believe in them more than they believe in themselves, as long as that aligns with your vision, this is exciting for you.
Yeah.
The only reason it's terrifying is you just want things to stay the same and you just need more leads.
Yep.
Like if that's you, this is about to be scary.
Dude, totally. All right, my dude, this has been awesome. I have a few, last questions to wind us down if you're up for it.
Sure.
All right, so bonus round. We talked a lot about leadership today. What does entrepreneurship mean to you, Mike?
Creating something out of nothing.
Biggest hero and biggest enemy?
My dad and fast food.
Oh, same, kindred spirits, my dude. What's your biggest fear?
My kids not believing in themselves.
I'm going to preface this. This is a mental framework for me, and what I like to gravitate to is the Bryce effect. When I'm around someone, their mood's going to start increasing. They're going to be a little bit more fitter. They're going to have more energy because it's the way I want to live my life to impact my others in a very positive way. What's the Mike Arce effect?
Like, what effect do I want to have on people?
Yep.
I think it's different for the person. Like, with my kids, I want them to feel for sure loved. My wife probably too. With people on my team, I want them to feel more confident. Not that I don't want that for my kids either, but like, I think whatever, I want to be able to fill gaps, whatever I think is needed for that particular individual. Sometimes somebody needs more motivation. Sometimes they're motivated, they just need a strategy. Sometimes somebody's got a strategy and they're motivated, but they just need a team. So I would like to say Mike Arce was helpful. He was very, very helpful.
You're in the business of giving incredible coaching advice. What's one of the best pieces of advice you have received and why?
This is weird, but this came from my dad about a year and a half ago. And it was, again, more perspective. So this specific piece of advice, it wasn't the specific piece, it was the overall concept of thinking, of seeing things in a different lens. My son wanted to get a job at like McDonald's or something like that, right? Burger King, McDonald's. And I discouraged him from getting that job. And I was like, son, there's so many things right now with the internet. You can work from home, you can do this, you can do that, you can make more money. You learn more skills, you get around people that are doing better things. What are you gonna get around that circle being at McDonald's? And so I could tell he was demotivated. And I felt like, man, I don't think I handled that right. My dad called me a week later and he goes, why'd you tell your son not to get a job at McDonald's or Burger King? And I was like, and I told him the reason I just told you. And he goes, yeah, but son, you need those medial jobs. Those are important. That's part of his story. You worked at those jobs. You get to say that you've worked at those jobs. You're taking that away from him. Let him have that McDonald's story that he worked at that place. I scrubbed the floors.
Yes.
I had to do this stuff. Like, let him have that. If he doesn't want to have, he doesn't have it. But if he's asking for it, let him get it. You'll take that from him. It's his life, not yours. And I was like, damn, he's right. And so from that, it was like a different perspective. Like, what value can you gain? So that was a concept, is like, what value can you gain from the thing that I see no value in? And then maybe there's something more. I'm just looking at it through a poor lens.
I love that. And I have a Burger King story myself, so I
do?
really
It's
respect.
probably cool, right?
It's awesome, yeah. I mean, 17 jobs. I think you had 24, but donating blood plasma, working at a frozen yogurt shop, doing the grill at Burger King. I mean, it's part of the story, and it really has built a lot of character.
I worked in a pizzeria, scrubbing the floors. I get it.
Yeah. All right, my dude, 2 last questions.
Yep.
Parting piece of wisdom. Someone's watching this, someone's listening to this. They know they want to change. They know they're meant for something more. They want to explore entrepreneurship, create their own path. For whatever reason, they're scared, they're nervous. There's some inner critic in the back of their mind. What do you say to that person?
Hang around people that are doing it. I know I've said that already. I wish it was something fresh, but that is the piece. Like, if you hang around people that are doing the thing you're afraid to do, you're more likely to have less fear. I will not jump off a cliff into water where there's nobody in line. If the line is long, I get more confidence. If the line's really long and there's people at the bottom cheering, I have way more confidence. Get yourself with a cliff with a lot of people in line and at the bottom cheering you on.
Mike, the last question, the title of this podcast, rebranded since the last time you were on in 21, is the Fitness CEO Podcast. What does it mean to you to be a CEO?
My job is to make this thing real. So right now, I'm 20% of the way where I think real is. So I think this industry I'm helping it along in the way that it exists today, but I'm building the tools to help it where it's about to go. The industry is about to get something really different, and I've got to help shape this industry into something bigger. So it's about building a great team. I believe a great company isn't built by great people, it's built by great systems, and great people run those great systems. So we're building the systems, we're building the team, we're making adjustments. Sometimes we've got to move systems, sometimes we've got to move teams or people, but at the end of the day, I care less about anything other than making sure the mission is accomplished.
So like a true leader and a CEO, my friend. Well, Mr. Arce, I want to take a second to appreciate you, to acknowledge you. It's been awesome getting to know you the last few years. It's been awesome for you to come out to California, shoot a podcast with me. Now we're here at your home turf, and I really appreciated that. But more so than anything, I love your heart. I love your passion. I love your vision. I love the fact that you want to make a big impact, and I have a lot of respect for that being in the industry. So I want to thank you again for being on this show and being for the guy and the friend that you are.
Love it. Thank you, man. Same here.
Well, friends, I hope you got an amazing episode today. I know you did. One thing that would make a world of difference for us, if you could like and also drop your biggest comment. What was your biggest takeaway today? Drop that in the comments. That would help us continue to grow the show. Mike, appreciate you, my friend. And as always, remember that no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself, and the time is now. We'll see you in the next episode.